yeah, you are. Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome to Now&Xen, the podcast about microtonal and xenharmonic music, both national and international, foreign and domestic, past, present, and future. For J.I. purists, computer geeks, alternative guitarists, and academic aficionados alike, people of all ages from age 8 to 81/64, feel free to participate. I'm Stephen Weigel.
And I'm Sevish.
And this is Now&Xen. Okay, so I'm here with Sevish today, and we were talking about what microtonality means. And since this is the first episode, we feel like it would be good to sort of bring you into what the definition means, why musicians are interested in using it. Our future episodes will get a little bit more advanced, but for now, we want to kind of assume that you're coming with this to an open mind, and that you maybe are new to the topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And the music that you heard in the introduction was, of course, microtonal.
Yes,
so
yes.
That might give you an idea.
Right, exactly. It's like music that's microtonal has this, has sort of a different sound to it. I like to say that when you listen to music, there are certain categories that your brain wants to put the pitches into. And with microtonality, it's just that the categories are a little bit different. And they're sort of that way on purpose to get you to rethink how it sounds. Would you agree with that, Sevish?
Yeah, I think so. What you're trying to say is that kind of like a cultural learning thing, as in, you know, how we perceive music is culturally learned. We hear certain notes all around us every day. We're immersed in them, the same 12 notes, if you're a Westerner like I am. And so you feel a certain way when you hear, say, a major scale or music written in a major key.
Right.
But microtonality is not like that. It uses notes that are outside what we're used to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can even have things like a major scale, but that have to do with a completely different set of notes. I mean, that's what microtonality is all about at its core. It's like what happens to Western musicians is they sort of, grow up and they get interested in music, and then they're constantly taught to reference the piano in music theory. And Sevish and I have different backgrounds, so, he's more qualified to talk about, like, all the awesome things he does in computers and all that. And I'm more qualified to talk about, say, like, what it's like to go through school and then get to the end and find out that it's still really hard to get a job. So, with microtonality, it is like you don't get it doesn't get any screen time, if that makes any sense. It's like, you're taught what the piano is, and with music theory, you're taught to memorize certain chords. Like, that a C major chord consists of C's, E's, and G's, and it can sort of be in any different place, but that's, what C major is. And then a C major scale has 7 notes. So you get to memorize that, and then that's how you conceptualize pitch. But microtonality can help you conceptualize pitch in different ways. Like, yeah, I don't know what that happened, but I mean, you, Sevish, you've seen some of those, like, interesting graphs that the microtonal community has made where they conceptualize pitch in different ways. We can just think of pitch as going from high to low, and we use cent values for that. So there's a lot of different ways to think about it. It would be like being presented with a piano that had a different number of notes that wasn't 12. Because the piano that Western musicians have right now has 12 notes. And you probably know that 12 notes means that there's 12 notes in the octave. That's really important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you also hear the statistic, a piano has 88 notes. Well, right, there's 88 keys on the piano, but then when microtonalists say 12 notes, they're usually referring to equally dividing an octave. So if you had 13 notes in an octave, then it would be like the space in which you usually have 12 notes gets used for 13 notes instead.
Oh, so you'd have to like squish those notes up so you have just enough room for one more of those notes, and then you have 13 equal notes in the octave.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's always what I tell people, because it's easy to sort of like get them to understand that. It's actually almost kind of like a cross rhythm. Like, you know how with 3 on 2, it's like, okay, you have 3 things in the space of 2 things. You can pretend that space we've got is an octave, and, you know, the hitting is equal temperament. So, you know, if you had 12 in the space of 13, you could picture that pitch-wise. I can't tap a 12 on 13. I guess we need to get Jacob Collier in here. But, yeah, that's the idea. And it's like, you would also be able to picture 13 as like starting from one note, and then as you went one note up and kept going, it would get like more and more off of 12 equal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can sort of think about how that would work.
Yeah. Right, so what you're talking about, dividing up a pitch space or an interval of an octave, this is really unintuitive, I think, for a lot of musicians who have gone through school and have been taught there are 12 notes and this is how we use them. And, you know, depending on what instrument they played, maybe if they were playing a violin or if they were a singer, they might know a little bit more, like, oh, we still use these 12 notes as like a tonal framework, but sometimes we can slightly sweeten the intonation in certain contexts to make the music overall sound better. But the idea of actually writing music or playing music in a totally different tonal framework, which isn't based on the assumption of 12 more or less equal notes, is what this microtonal thing is all about. But all of this, I think, is a very Western perspective. We're talking about, now that we have had these 12 notes, what do we want to do that's new in the future? But the other aspect of microtonality is looking back, in that many of the world's cultures have used microtonal scales. What we define as microtonal is all music which is tuned to something other than 12 equal. But this actually includes loads of music. For example, traditional Indian music, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or like or gamelan music or maqam music. All really like older non-Western music is microtonal, or at the very least xenharmonic in some way. That's actually...
Right, and gamelan is actually how I got into microtonality in the first place. So...
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So that's your intro story. That's how Debussy, well, he didn't really get into it, but he has this famous story where he heard the gamelan music and he remarked that Western music sounded like a traveling circus to him after that, which I thought was really funny. A lot of people have shocking experiences with that, and I definitely was shocked by it as well. There was a long phase where I was listening to that. I'm trying to remember how I first got into it, because you've got the gamelan story. What happened with me was I was always like interested in it, which is something that goes against the traditional currents of being a musician. You correctly mentioned that a lot of Western musicians think that like writing outside of 12 equal notes is a really odd thing, or like it wouldn't cross their minds, or they would think it was a bad idea. Yeah. But I never thought that. And in high school, I kind of was like hoping that like someone else had done it in a really significant way, but I didn't have like the tools to really look at it and figure it out. And then I met Aaron Hunt.
Okay.
Aaron Hunt actually taught at Ball State University for a while, and his last year before he moved to Germany, I got to talk to him, and he went to my composition recital, and he invited me to the xenharmonic Facebook groups, which I didn't know about. And then I got stuck on Facebook forever because of those. Hoping to move away from Facebook. We're all stuck on
Facebook forever.
yeah, exactly. But we gotta get like a better chat room going or whatever. The problem is people just keep pouring in, and it's like everyone uses Facebook, so it's so hard to like get everyone to move to like something smaller that would be better for them. So
yeah, because then we cut off all of those people that would just suddenly discover microtonality by browsing Facebook groups, which is the weird state that we're in now, right?
Yeah, it's really bizarre, and I guess it's odd that in 2015 I never would have like thought to do that, but now in 2018, I'm like trying to like really like rig all the social media just right, and I think I've got Facebook pretty down, but none of the other stuff is doing anything for me. But
all of this goes to show that microtonality is quite rare, at least amongst people in the Western world, that we have to get online in order to find other people that are discussing these ideas.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, it's a little bit sad, I guess, but also a little bit special. You feel like, at least I feel like I'm the only one who's into this, and like it's my thing.
Yeah.
I'm also, as a microtonalist, I'm not threatened by anyone else who makes it their thing. Like, I really want like everyone to come to the table and like, sup from the delights of xenharmonic intuition and aesthetic, but it's like people think it's a lot of work, or like they don't think they can do it. That might be like the worst part. I introduce some people to it with like a keyboard or some sounds or something, and their ear training will be like better than mine almost immediately. And I'm like, see, you can do this. You just have to like, work with it a little bit and maybe pick one and stick with it. Pick a tuning and stick with it or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But, we're talking about how rare it is, but there have been some artists that recently put microtonal music on the map almost. Like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard did the Flying Microtonal Banana album last year, and I'm still hearing about that all the time from people that are just discovering microtonal music. Oh, hey, check out this band.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a momentum building up, and that in the future there's going to be a lot more awareness about these techniques, because that's what they are, right? They're musical, maybe compositional or performance techniques. It's about using tuning in a way to get a result, because if I change the tuning of a piece of music, I can achieve a new mood, as it were. Yeah. Like Ivor Darreg, that was his thing, right? New moods. That's what we have access to now that we have microtones.
Yes, absolutely. New moods are definitely something that I think the microtonalist wants to get out of something. We also mentioned the name Ivor Darreg. Would you care to explain sort of his like background and history, and maybe where like the word xenharmonic comes from as well, since our listeners might not know about the nuanced difference between microtonality and xenharmonic, and why would we even need to make a difference between those words, maybe?
Well, I'm not the expert on Ivor Darreg, but from what I understand, he was an instrument builder and a great thinker, an idea kind of dude.
Yeah.
Who wrote so much. Have you ever read his writings? Because there's a massive collection online that used to be available on the Sonic Arts website, which I think has gone down now.
Yeah, I couldn't find it the other day, actually. I had read most of it, and I had actually taken some of the parts about like what it meant to be xenharmonic and like put them in a Word doc, because I did a presentation on what the word xenharmonic meant once at Ball State University. So I wanted to get it like, straight from the horse's mouth, what xenharmonic meant. So, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, he always had the rallying cry of the microtonalist. He had that kind of activist mentality. Like, there are real things that we can gain by introducing these techniques into music. And also, all of this went down in the 20th century. This is a time where certain musical instruments still hadn't hit the mainstream. Things like electronics, stuff that I'm using every day. Ivor Darreg was an innovator there as well. Had built a very early oboe synthesizer type thing, and was able to play arbitrary tunings on it, and was, I think, one of the first people in sort of the Western art tradition. Was he in the art tradition? I'm not sure, but in the Western tradition that was exploring microtones not as from a historical perspective or looking back, but actually looking forward at what new things can come from this music.
In my opinion, Ivor Darreg sort of played by his own rules, although he was certainly influenced by Western art music, at least to some extent. It's really amazing what he was able to accomplish with his own instruments. Another famous one being the Megalyra. It created deep, long notes. I know I listened to those on D12 Elate.
On that note, let's wrap up for this first episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it and are eager for more. We will be back with more discussion and music in each episode. The show's site is at now&xen.libsyn.com. at xen.libsyn.com. And you can find us at Facebook, facebook.com/Now&Xen, and Twitter at Now_Xen.
As for the creators, I'm Stephen Weigel, xenharmonic composer performer, and you can find my work at StephenWeigelComposerPerformer.com. That's all sort of one first word, StephenWeigelComposerPerformer.com.
And I'm Sevish. You can find me at sevish.com.
We're done for now, but tune in next time. We'll see you Xen.